Young mechanic girl fixes wheelchair for free for a disabled child. Days later, single dad CEO lands in a private jet, and then love found them. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long amber shadows across the winding stretch of highway that curved into the sleepy little town of Millstone. Dust danced in the golden light as a sleek, jet-black Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled to a quiet stop near an old, weather-beaten garage with peeling paint and a faded sign that read, Kaylee's Auto Repair. Inside the open garage, Kaylee Monroe, a 28-year-old mechanic with grease on her jeans and determination in her eyes, was tightening the bolts on a pickup's engine. Her brown hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and the scent of motor oil clung to the air around her like a second skin. She had not noticed the luxury car pulling up until she heard the sudden clatter outside. Turning sharply, her eyes widened. Just a few feet from her door, a small wheelchair lay toppled on the gravel, its young occupant sprawled awkwardly on the ground beside it. "Hey, kid, are you okay?" she shouted, sprinting across the lot. The boy, about 5 years old, blinked up at her with startled blue eyes, his face smeared with dust, his small hands scraped raw. Kaylee knelt beside him, gently brushing the dirt from his cheeks. "What are you doing out here alone? Who lets a little guy like you roll around near a highway?" Before the boy could answer, the sharp slam of a car door cut through the air. "Lucas!" a deep voice cried. A tall man came running from the direction of a convenience store across the road. His expensive shoes crunched against the gravel, his suit jacket flapping behind him. He stopped short, his face pale as he took in the scene. "Lucas, what are you doing? Are you hurt?" the man gasped, dropping to his knees beside the boy. "I'm fine, Daddy," the boy said quickly, eyes wide with guilt. Kaylee rose to her feet, eyes narrowing. "Is this your kid?" The man looked up, confused and defensive. "Yes. Who are you?" "I'm the person who just kept your son from cracking his head open," Kaylee snapped, her tone sharp. "You left him alone in the car?" "It was just for a minute," the man said, voice rising. "I went inside to grab him some juice. He must have unlocked the door and—" "Are you out of your mind?" she cut in. "You do not leave a disabled child unattended. Not near a road, not anywhere." The man stood, bristling. "I said it was a mistake. What, do you think I do this all the time?" Lucas tugged on Kaylee's sleeve, looking up at her with worried eyes. "It's okay. Daddy didn't mean to. I just wanted to see the cool cars in your shop." Kaylee's expression softened just a touch as she looked down at the boy, still sitting in the dirt. "You like cars, huh?" Lucas nodded eagerly. "I love engines. My chair has wheels too, see?" he said, pointing proudly at his tipped-over wheelchair. Kaylee crouched beside him again, inspecting the damage. The wheel alignment was off, the brake handle bent. She gave a small sigh. "This thing's had a rough ride." She glanced up at the man, still standing stiffly, unsure whether to argue or apologize. "Luke," she said with a firm voice, "your son's fine, but this wheelchair isn't. I can patch it up for now so he can get around without hurting himself. No charge." He looked at her, surprised. "You do not have to." "I know I don't have to," she interrupted. "But I want to, for him." Lucas grinned. Kaylee hoisted the chair upright and lifted Lucas into her arms with practiced ease. "You okay with a ride, buddy?" "Yep," he chirped. She carried him into the garage and set him gently on a tall mechanic's stool. Then she turned back toward the man. "You can come in too. The sun's brutal this time of day and your car's roasting. You might as well cool off while I fix the damage." The man hesitated before stepping inside, the air shifting from tension to something more uncertain, like a storm that had passed, leaving silence in its wake. "I am Daniel," he said quietly, watching as she set to work on the chair. "Daniel Carter." Kaylee did not look up. "I am Kaylee Monroe. Try not to let this happen again, Daniel." There was a long pause, the only sound the soft clink of tools and the ticking of a nearby fan. Lucas swung his legs as he watched her work, grinning from ear to ear. "I think you're awesome," he said suddenly. Kaylee smiled for the first time that afternoon. "Thanks, kid. I think you're pretty awesome, too." And just like that, beneath the humming fluorescent lights of an old roadside garage, 3 very different lives began to intersect, starting with a broken wheelchair, a roadside scolding, and the quiet, accidental kindness of a woman with oil on her hands and fire in her heart. The sound of the drill whirred softly as Kaylee worked with steady hands, adjusting the bent axle of the wheelchair. A patch of sunlight filtered through the cracked windows of her old garage, casting warm light over the scattered tools, the smell of grease and steel hanging in the air. Lucas sat on the stool, legs swinging, his curious eyes darting from tool to tool like a puppy discovering a new park. "What's that one called?" he asked, pointing to a wrench with a chipped blue handle. That's my lucky wrench," Kaylee said with a smile. "Fixed my first motorbike with that thing. I was 16 and too stubborn to let it die." Lucas laughed, his voice bright and clear. "I want to fix stuff too. Maybe I can build a robot one day that can fix my chair by itself." Kaylee raised an eyebrow, wiping her hands on a rag. "A robot mechanic? That sounds dangerous. I might lose my job." "I'll program it to help you, not replace you," he said earnestly. Daniel leaned silently against the doorway of the garage, arms crossed, watching them. His gaze wasn't the guarded one he had arrived with. There was something softer now, almost reverent. The way this woman, this stranger, interacted with his son, so naturally, so effortlessly, it stirred something in him that had been quiet for a long time. "You're good with him," Daniel finally said, his voice low. Kaylee glanced up, half smiling. "He's a cool kid, got a big imagination." Lucas reached into the side pocket of his hoodie and pulled out a folded piece of paper, slightly crumpled at the edges. "I drew this earlier, but I want you to have it," he said shyly. Kaylee knelt down, gently taking the paper. She unfolded it slowly, revealing a bright drawing in crayon. It showed a girl with messy brown hair, big green eyes and golden hands surrounded by gears and stars. Above the picture were the words written in a child's uneven scrawl, "The girl with golden hands." Her throat tightened unexpectedly. "Wow, you really drew this for me?" Lucas nodded. "'Cause you fixed my chair and you were nice. My mom used to say people like you have golden hands. She said they make the world better." Kaylee's eyes flicked to Daniel, who had looked away, jaw clenched, eyes distant. Thank you, Lucas," she said, her voice soft. "This is the best gift I've gotten in a long time." She walked to the wall behind her workbench, cleared a small space between old calendars and tool diagrams, and pinned the drawing right in the center. For a moment the garage seemed warmer, fuller, like the heart of it had been lit from within. Daniel stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Listen, I know this is going to sound strange, but have you ever considered working with kids? With someone like Lucas?" She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He paused, then looked her in the eye. "Lucas' usual aide quit last month. Since then it's just been me juggling work and taking care of him full time. He needs someone who sees him, talks to him, treats him like a person, not a problem to manage." Kaylee blinked, caught off guard. "You want to hire me? To spend time with him, a few hours a day, play, teach him stuff, talk about robots or bikes or whatever it is you two clicked over," Daniel said. "You have a way with him, and I saw it." She leaned back against the workbench, arms folded, brow furrowed. "I'm a mechanic. I run this place on my own. I'm not a nanny." "I am not asking you to be a nanny," he said gently. "Just a presence. Someone real." She looked at Lucas, who was spinning one of her wrenches slowly in his lap, humming to himself. Maybe I could try it. Just for a few days," she said slowly. "See how it goes." Daniel nodded. "That is more than enough." He reached into his wallet and handed her a sleek, embossed business card. "If you decide to continue, just call me. I can adjust my schedule or have my driver bring him over here, whatever works best for you." Kaylee took the card, her eyes flickering over the name, Daniel Carter, CEO, Carter Tech Industries. She looked back up, brow raised. "So, that's the secret behind the fancy car." He shrugged with a faint smile. "I do not talk about it unless I have to. People get weird when they hear the title." "I bet they do." Daniel extended a hand. "Thanks for today, Kaylee. Truly." She shook it, firm and brief. "Do not thank me. Just do better next time." A short laugh escaped him, the first she had heard. "Deal." After they left, the garage grew quiet again. Kaylee stood staring at the drawing on the wall, fingers brushing the edge of the paper. "The girl with golden hands," she whispered. She walked back to her workbench, but her eyes kept drifting toward the wall. Something had shifted, not just in her day, but in her world. And for the first time in years, Kaylee Monroe found herself wondering if maybe, just maybe, her life was meant for more than bolts and engines. Maybe it had space for a little boy in a wheelchair and the mysterious father who looked at her like she was something extraordinary. The low roar of engines broke the stillness of the morning sky as a sleek private jet descended toward the tiny regional airstrip just 10 minutes outside Millstone. It was a place rarely visited by the wealthy or powerful, a stretch of concrete barely long enough to be called a runway. But that morning, the jet touched down with elegant precision, its polished body gleaming under the soft light of dawn. Daniel Carter stepped out onto the tarmac, dressed in a tailored navy suit that contrasted the rural charm of the surroundings. The wind caught his tie as he adjusted his cufflinks. Glancing briefly toward the black SUV waiting at the edge of the runway, he had just returned from an emergency board meeting in Chicago. 2 days of cold conference rooms, endless decisions, and faces that wore smiles too tightly. But now, with every step he took closer to Millstone, something inside him felt lighter. By mid-morning, the SUV pulled up outside Kaylee's garage. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. Lucas, already there and seated on the workbench with a box of crayons, squealed with delight. "Daddy!" Daniel knelt and scooped him into his arms. "I missed you, buddy." Kaylee looked up from under the hood of a rusty Jeep. Her hair was tied back, a smear of oil across her cheek. She pulled off her gloves, surprised to see Daniel so soon, and definitely not expecting the way he had arrived. "You flew in? On a jet?" she said, her brow lifting. Daniel straightened, smiling faintly. "I had to see how things were going with Lucas and with you. Thought I'd come in person." "I thought you said you were low-key about all the CEO stuff," she said, only half joking. "I am," he replied, "but sometimes the jet is just faster." She arched an eyebrow but said nothing. "I was hoping," Daniel continued, "you might be willing to come by the house. We could talk more about your role with Lucas, what it might look like long-term. Dinner if you're..." Kaylee hesitated. She glanced at Lucas, who was looking up at her with wide, hopeful eyes. "Will there be dessert?" he asked, grinning. She sighed, smiling despite herself. "If there's pie, I might consider it." Later that evening, Kaylee followed Daniel's directions along the winding road leading into the hills just north of town. When the estate came into view, her breath caught. The house was modern but warm, large glass walls, natural stone, elegant wood framing that glowed softly in the setting sun. It was a world away from her greasy little garage. A valet opened the gate. She pulled her old truck into the roundabout, painfully aware of how out of place it looked next to Daniel's luxury vehicles. As she stepped out, Lucas ran to meet her at the front door, wearing a button-up shirt that was a little too big, his hair brushed neatly. "You came," he beamed. Kaylee knelt and hugged him. "You promised pie, remember?" Daniel appeared behind him, his smile gentle. "We made apple. I did not bake it, though. I know my limits." Inside, everything was pristine, clean lines, elegant decor, walls adorned with contemporary art. It smelled faintly of cedar and lemon. Kaylee tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to feel the contrast between this and her world. Dinner was set on the patio, overlooking a wide stretch of trees. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the three of them sat beneath hanging lights, soft music playing in the background. Daniel poured her a glass of wine. "Thank you for coming." She studied him for a moment. "I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't belong in this kind of place." "You belong where people appreciate you," he said quietly. "Lucas does. I do." She looked away. "You're not trying to buy me, are you?" His face fell, then softened. "No, I know how that sounds, but no, I don't want anything from you but time. Time with him, time to let something real grow, if that's something you want too." Lucas leaned on her arm, his small hand clutching her sleeve. "Please don't stop coming." Kaylee's chest tightened. After dinner, they sat by the fireplace inside, Lucas dozing in her lap as Daniel told her stories of his early career, how he lost his wife to cancer, and how hard it was to build a world full of success but empty of connection. Kaylee listened, slowly letting the walls around her heart ease open. When the night grew late and the stars shone bright above the hills, she looked down at the sleeping boy in her arms, then up at the man beside her. "I think I can stay a little longer," she said softly. Daniel nodded, something warm flickering in his eyes, and just like that, in a house that once echoed with silence, laughter, and warmth, returned one mechanic, one boy, and one man learning how to be whole again. The park was quiet that afternoon, a breeze rustling through the trees as sunlight filtered softly across the open lawns. Beneath the shade of a large oak, Kaylee sat cross-legged on a picnic blanket, a toy helicopter in her lap, toolbox beside her. Lucas watched eagerly, his eyes fixed on her hands. "Do you think it can fly again?" "With a little luck and elbow grease, anything can," she replied, tightening the propeller. They had started meeting at the park a few times each week. What began as a way to get Lucas outdoors became something more: shared rituals, laughter, and quiet connection. Sometimes they fixed toys, sometimes they just watched ducks glide across the pond, and sometimes Daniel joined them. "Lunch delivery," Daniel called, walking toward them with a paper bag. Kaylee looked up with a smirk. "More turkey sandwiches?" Daniel chuckled, sitting beside them. "Some things don't need changing. I got apple juice for Lucas, iced tea for you." "You remembered," she said, slightly surprised. "I pay attention," he said with a smile. As they ate, Kaylee flipped a switch on the helicopter. It lifted briefly before spiraling down again. Lucas clapped. "It flew!" "Sort of," she laughed. "Next time we'll get it to hover." They ate, talked, and laughed under the tree. It was easy, natural, like something none of them wanted to end. Then Lucas looked up. "You know what I like best? When it's the three of us. It feels like a family." Kaylee paused, sandwich in hand. Daniel looked down, silent. She gave a small laugh to ease the tension. "You're a sweet kid, Lucas." "I mean it," he said. "It feels warm, like home." The word struck deeper than expected. Kaylee glanced at Daniel, catching the way he looked at her, steady, warm, and quiet. "I never really had that," she said softly, "a family like this. My parents died when I was 15. I bounced around foster homes, never stayed long." Lucas reached for her hand. "I'm sorry, Miss Kaylee," she blinked. "Thank you, sweetheart." Daniel watched them, something shifting in his chest. The connection between them was undeniable. He pulled out a small container. "Apple pie, like last time." Kaylee smiled. "Bribing me again, Mr. Carter?" "Maybe. Is it working?" She laughed, a little. As the sun dipped lower, Lucas dozed off with his head on Kaylee's leg. She stroked his hair gently. "He's a good kid," she whispered. "He's everything," Daniel replied. They sat in silence, wrapped in the kind of warmth that felt like home, but inside Kaylee wrestled with doubt. Daniel was elegance and control. She was grit and grease. She looked at Lucas, then at Daniel, his gaze soft and unwavering. Her heart fluttered, but she reminded herself not to dream, not to hope. And yet, even in her doubt, something in her stirred, because maybe, just maybe, she was already part of something she never dared imagine. A family. The clouds rolled in unexpectedly that afternoon, casting long shadows over the otherwise quiet estate. Daniel had just returned from a meeting when his assistant buzzed his phone. "Sir, there's a woman here demanding to speak with you. She says she's Tiffany Carter." Daniel froze. It had been years since Tiffany had vanished from their lives, after the divorce, after signing away full custody of Lucas, after claiming motherhood was too limiting for the lifestyle she craved. She had not called, written, or asked about her son in all that time, until now. "Send her in," Daniel said stiffly, the muscles in his jaw tightening. Moments later, Tiffany walked into the living room, as striking as ever, immaculate makeup, heels clicking on the hardwood, designer bag dangling from one manicured hand. Her perfume hit the air before she spoke. "Well, hello, darling," she purred, eyes flicking around the room like a predator assessing her prey. Daniel stood still. "What are you doing here?" She smiled. "Is that any way to greet the mother of your child?" He narrowed his eyes. "You have not acted like his mother in a very long time." "I've changed," she said smoothly, "and I've been watching. You and that mechanic girl." Daniel's breath caught. "Kaylee?" Tiffany's eyes narrowed. "Yes, her. The one who plays house with my son. Did you think I wouldn't find out? She has a record, Daniel, petty theft. Got arrested at 19 for stealing from a hardware store." He paled. Tiffany stepped closer. "Do you know what kind of scandal this would cause if the press got a whiff of it? A CEO allowing a criminal to be around his child? You'd lose investors overnight. And she smiled sweetly, could petition for full custody. Maybe I should." "You never wanted custody," Daniel said coldly. "I didn't," she admitted, examining her nails. "But I do now. Especially if it means getting control and removing certain people from his life." The next day, Kaylee opened the garage door to find Tiffany standing there, arms crossed, heels sinking slightly into the gravel. "You must be Kaylee," she said with a tight smile. Kaylee wiped her hands on a rag, surprised. "And you are?" "I'm Tiffany Carter, Lucas's mother." That stopped her cold. "I'm here to give you a little advice," Tiffany continued. "You've had your fun playing mechanic mom, but let's not pretend you belong in his life." Kaylee stood straighter. "Excuse me?" "Oh, please," Tiffany sneered. "You think Daniel's going to ride off into the sunset with a girl from a garage? You think my son should be raised by someone with a criminal record?" Kaylee stiffened, color draining from her face. "You don't know anything about me," she said quietly. "I know enough," Tiffany snapped. "You were arrested for theft, weren't you? Not exactly the picture of maternal influence." Kaylee didn't respond. The truth hurt more than the lie ever could. That night, Daniel came by the garage, breathless, as though he had run the whole way. "She found you." Kaylee nodded, folding a small cardboard box. Inside it were toys, drawings, and a tiny red wrench Lucas had given her. "I'm giving these back," she said, her voice calm but tired. "Lucas should have them." "Kaylee, don't do this," Daniel pleaded. "She's bluffing. She wants control, but we can fight her." "She has the upper hand," Kaylee said, not meeting his eyes. "I have a record. You have a reputation. Lucas is in the middle. He doesn't deserve to be torn apart by this." Daniel stepped forward. "You are not the person she says you are." "But I was," she said. "And if staying means she drags him through a custody battle, then I'd rather disappear than let that happen." His voice cracked. "Lucas will miss you." "I'll miss him more." She handed him the box, then stepped back, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Goodbye, Daniel." She waited until he drove away before locking the garage, heart aching with every breath. That night, in the silence of her small apartment above the garage, Kaylee sat on the edge of her bed, holding the crumpled drawing Lucas had made, the one she had secretly kept. The girl with golden hands. She traced the lines with her fingers, tears falling onto the page. "He needs someone better," she whispered into the dark, "someone with clean hands." But as the wind howled outside and the night closed in around her, a part of her, a quiet, stubborn part, whispered back, "Or maybe he just needed you." Rain lashed against the windows of the Carter estate, the wind howling like a wounded animal. Inside, the once cheerful home was heavy with silence and shadows. Daniel paced the floor outside Lucas's room, phone in hand, his nerves unraveling more with each minute. The doctor had come and gone. The diagnosis was clear. Lucas was physically fine, no infection, no virus, but emotionally, he had shut down. Feverish from exhaustion and grief, the little boy refused to eat, barely spoke, and cried himself into restless sleep. Daniel sat at the edge of Lucas's bed, brushing damp curls from his son's forehead. "Buddy, please," he whispered, "you have to try. Just a sip of water." Lucas didn't answer. His eyes remained closed, lips slightly parted, breath shallow. It was then that Daniel noticed the paper clutched in Lucas's hand. He gently unfolded it, heart twisting as he read the words written in blocky, trembling letters. "If I can't have Miss Kaylee, then I don't want anything. I'll be sad forever." Lucas. Daniel's breath caught. He stood abruptly, chest tight, rage and helplessness boiling together. He thought of Tiffany, how easily she had disrupted everything, how Kaylee had vanished into silence, convinced she was the problem. But it was not the past that made someone dangerous. It was the absence of love. And Kaylee loved Lucas. That was all that mattered. Without thinking, Daniel grabbed his coat and keys. Outside, the storm raged, but he did not care. The road to Millstone was slick and winding, but he drove it like a man with nothing left to lose. Lightning cracked the sky as his headlights cut through sheets of rain. By the time he reached the garage, he was soaked to the bone. He slammed the door of the car and ran to the front, pounding his fist against the door. "Kaylee!" he shouted. "Open the door, please!" There was no answer. "Kaylee!" "It's Daniel. I need you." Moments later, the door creaked open and there she stood, barefoot, in an oversized sweater, her hair loose and damp, eyes tired and confused. "Daniel?" she said, startled. What are you doing here?" He stepped forward, rain dripping from his clothes, desperation in his eyes. "It's Lucas. He's not eating, not talking. He's sick and he's shutting down and he left a note, he said, losing you would make him sad forever." Kaylee gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth. Daniel's voice cracked. "He doesn't want Tiffany. He doesn't care about courts or names or past mistakes. He wants you. He chooses you." Tears welled in her eyes, the storm outside mirroring the storm inside her heart. "I thought I was protecting him," she whispered. "I thought leaving was the right thing." "You are what's right," Daniel said. "Please, come home. For him. For us." They stood in the doorway, rain soaking them both, neither moving. Then Kaylee stepped forward and Daniel caught her in his arms. She pressed her face into his shoulder, sobbing against the thunder. He held her tightly, as if letting go might break the world apart. "I'm coming back," she whispered. "I'm not leaving him again." Less than an hour later, Kaylee stepped quietly into Lucas's room. The lights were dim, the air warm and still. She knelt beside his bed and took his hand. "Hey, little man," she whispered. Lucas stirred, eyelids fluttering. "Miss Kaylee?" "I'm here," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm right here." His small arms reached for her, and she gathered him into her lap, rocking gently as he nestled against her. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching silently as color returned to his son's cheeks for the first time in days. Kaylee looked up and met his eyes, and in that moment something unspoken passed between them, something real, something unshakable. Their little family had been broken, but love, stubborn, weather-beaten, unconditional love, had brought it back together, and this time it would stay. The next few days unfolded like a storm Kaylee hadn't prepared for. It started with a grainy photo, her stepping out of Daniel's car, Lucas asleep in her arms. The headline ran across every entertainment site by morning: "Billionaire CEO in secret romance with small-town mechanic." Soon the tabloids spun the story into something grotesque. They called her the gold digger with a criminal past, the girl from the garage who caught a billionaire, twisting every fact until truth vanished behind flashy headlines. Kaylee stood in front of the mirror in the small bathroom at the garage, clutching her phone, reading the comments. "She's just using him. Where was she when he built his empire? He'll regret this, trust me." Her hands trembled. The old shame crept back like a shadow, her record, her past, the feeling that she would never truly belong in a world of polished shoes and quiet power. Then came Tiffany. She arrived not with heels and perfume this time, but with fire in her eyes and legal papers in hand. "You should have stayed away," she spat, cornering Kaylee behind the garage. "This is your last warning. I've got lawyers who eat people like you for breakfast. If you don't walk away, I will drag you and your story into every court in this state." Kaylee's voice was barely a whisper. "Lucas doesn't want you," Tiffany smirked. "He's 5. He wants candy for breakfast." "What he wants doesn't matter." "Then maybe he should tell you himself." The voice came from behind them. Lucas sat in his wheelchair by the door, Daniel beside him, his hand on his son's shoulder. The boy looked at his mother, unafraid, unwavering. "I don't want to live with you," Lucas said clearly. "I don't love you the way I love her. She's my family." Tiffany's face crumbled for just a second before the fury returned. "You think this is over?" she hissed. Daniel stepped forward. "It is. You left him, you signed the papers, and if you try to hurt him again, I will see you in court and you'll lose." Tiffany gave them one last look, bitter and burning, before turning and walking away for good. But even with her gone, the media didn't stop. They twisted Lucas's statement, questioned Daniel's judgment, painted Kaylee as a woman manipulating a grieving child and a lonely man. That night, Kaylee packed her bag. Daniel found her on the porch, sitting on the steps, her duffel at her feet. "I can't stay," she said before he could speak. "This is too much. I can take being judged for who I was, but I won't let them hurt Lucas just to get to me." Daniel crouched beside her, eyes fierce and filled with something she hadn't seen before, conviction. "Do you love him?" he asked. She nodded. "More than anything. And me?" Her breath caught. She hadn't said it aloud yet, not even to herself, but it was there, swelling inside her like a tide. "Yes," she whispered. "Then let me protect you," he said. "Let me protect us." The next morning, Daniel Carter appeared on national television. The host leaned forward, clearly eager for scandal. "Mr. Carter, people are calling her a gold digger. Some say she's after your money, your name—" Daniel interrupted, voice steady and clear. "Her name is Kaylee Monroe. She's the woman who pulled my son out of the dirt and gave him his smile back. She's the one who stayed when things got hard and left only to protect him." He looked into the camera. "She's not the person they say she is. She's the one who saved us, me and Lucas. And if you want a headline, here it is. I love her, and I will spend the rest of my life proving she deserves everything good this world can offer." The silence in the studio was deafening. By nightfall, the narrative shifted. Viewers flooded the network with support. Tiffany, seeing the tide turn, quietly withdrew her legal threats. And Kaylee? She watched the broadcast from her garage, tears streaming down her face. Not because of the words, but because for the first time in her life, someone had stood up not just for her past, but for her heart. Later that night, Daniel and Lucas returned. Lucas leapt into her arms, and Daniel followed, wrapping them both in a fierce embrace. "We're not going anywhere," he whispered, and Kaylee for once let herself believe that love, real, honest, imperfect love, was not just something she could fix. It was something she could finally keep. 1 year later, under a soft spring sky, Kaylee Monroe became Kaylee Carter in a simple wedding held behind the garage where their story began. No chandeliers, no glamour, just close friends, laughter, and a wooden arch Daniel and Lucas had built together, draped in wildflowers. Lucas, now 6, walked proudly down the aisle using a silver walker, something unthinkable a year before. Months of therapy and love had given him that strength. He carried the rings in a small metal box he'd built himself with Kaylee. Handing it to Daniel, he whispered with a grin, "Don't drop them, Dad." Kaylee wore a borrowed lace dress with daisies in her hair. Daniel, in a vest and rolled-up sleeves, couldn't stop smiling. Their vows were quiet and deeply felt. "I never believed in second chances," Daniel said, voice thick with emotion. "Until you." "I never thought I'd be part of something whole," Kaylee whispered, "until both of you." After the kiss, the crowd cheered, and Lucas clapped louder than anyone. In the months that followed, their days fell into a gentle, fulfilling rhythm. Together, they opened Fix It Forward, a small community center near the garage where kids with disabilities came to learn, build, and believe. Kaylee taught them to use tools, turn scrap into treasure, and see the beauty in broken things. Lucas became her eager assistant and the center's heart, welcoming every new kid with a story and a smile. "My mom taught me how to build," he'd proudly say. "She can teach you too." Daniel handled the logistics, funding, and growth, but always made time to be on the floor during play sessions, offering quiet strength and warm encouragement. Their home was modest but full of light, laughter, and love. The kitchen always smelled like something baking, and the garage remained Kaylee's sanctuary, now filled with tiny chairs, toy parts, and children's laughter. Each evening, as the sky turned orange and the world slowed, the three of them sat on their old wooden porch swing. Lucas would lean against Kaylee, humming softly, Daniel's arm around her shoulders. One night, Lucas looked up and said, "I'm glad my old wheelchair broke." Kaylee smiled. "Why's that, sweetheart?" "'Cause if it didn't," he said, "I might never have met you, and we'd never be a family." Daniel pulled them both closer. "Sometimes," he said, "the best things start with something broken." And as the stars appeared above, the porch creaked gently beneath the weight of something rare and beautiful. A family, born not from perfection but from love, and built to last. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of love, resilience, and second chances. The Girl with Golden Hands reminds us that sometimes the most unexpected detours lead us exactly where we're meant to be. From a broken wheelchair to a bond that built a family, Kaylee, Daniel, and Lucas showed us that healing doesn't always come in hospitals. It can come in garages, parks, and in the quiet moments when we choose to believe in each other. If this story touched your heart, inspired your soul, or simply made you believe in love again, don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. This is where real emotions meet powerful storytelling, and where every story is crafted to lift your spirit and warm your heart. Until next time, keep believing in the beauty of second chances. Subscribe now to Soul Stirring Stories, where every story touches the soul.